disc, bulge, herniation, degenerative, osteophytes, modic changes in the bone, all this stuff, you have to get to the deepest muscles. The interspinalis would be connecting these. The multifidus would be in between every groove here. The rotatorus would be here to here, here to here. You need proximity to the problem to heal the problem. We can't mindfully heal bone, disc, ligament, but we can move through ranges of motion that leave it no choice, and we can contract and activate the muscles we do have control over, which will influence those things. But it's deep. We don't even get to this stuff till we get to full range back extensions, is basically what I'm trying to say. When we're doing holds, we're just starting to work the big muscles of the spinal erectors, the big group. And the reason that matters is those muscles pull on the same areas as the little muscles. Even though you're not fully using the little muscles yet. The first layer you can see and touch and poke. Training these is the first step to getting deeper, and it shares the same space. Remember the QL outer glute and then the hamstring calf? It's not exactly like that because it's not above and below. It's layers. It's deeper and outer, but it's the same sort of concept. You have to go through this and make this more flexible and tolerant and strong to then the next layer to gain better access. And this is the deepest layer. This is my favorite picture. So this is like the middle layer, you'll see. I want to make this a little bigger. I know I'm ranting. I think this is, I try not to be super nerdy. I think this is worth understanding. This is like the middle layer stuff. This is the deep layer. So middle layer is stuff that runs all the way up and down the whole spine. Multifidus is like the in-between diagonal muscles in between every segment of the spine. There's also this interspinalis, you can see here on the very deep stuff. Tiny, tiny muscles that just connect the back of it. And wherever there's muscles, there's also ligaments or there's tendons. Tendons only attach to bone with muscles. Everywhere there's joints that are connected to joints, there's ligaments. And so I'm showing this to say your injury, the level of injury of bones, discs, joints. So spondylosis or whatever the pronunciation, where the discs shift, the spine shifts one in front of the other. That is a joint issue where they're not stacked properly, and disc issue. And so they slide. That is an issue with the ligaments and muscles on this layer, on the deepest layer with the tightest, smallest bits. Even disc, if we're getting all the way to the bones and then to the in-between stuff of the disc, our best way to circulate and get the right tension is getting to this layer. So of course, all these things are working somewhat when you walk, sneeze, breathe, move, but measurable training to a point you're actually supporting them to change for the better has to come from deep flexion and deep side bending, deep lateral flexion, and then rotation or anti-rotation and like later stuff. But we can only get to that through doing the practical step of the holds. And so it all comes in a certain order. And if we just look up one of the muscles, I'll keep it super simple. One of the most important muscles is the multifidus. It's the one that runs all the way. This is multifidus. This is multifidus. This is multifidus. This is multifidus. It runs all the way up in between every bit of the spine. And it does a lot of different things. Or the rotatorus. Here are these in-between diagonal muscles at every bit of the spine. If you look up what they do, they help with spinal extension, and they also assist with lateral flexion and rotation. So it produces spinal extension, but think about it. If you're doing a back extension hold and you're avoidant and your back is afraid of the disc getting pulled on or the nerves within there, any of the small stuff, Your back is going to try to use the biggest muscles way out of the way with your glutes, with your spinal erectors, way before it starts to really call on this stuff. That's avoidance. That's you trying to avoid the pain. It's the same reason if someone has a shoulder injury and they're benching, they start benching like very in here with their triceps and chest. They're trying to use bigger stuff to hide actual deep shoulder range and pulling on the rotator cuff. You just tuck it away and hide it. So you could use so many analogies, a deep squat, whatever. You're going to try to hide it by using the big muscles to extend. So it does spinal extension, but we can guarantee we're going to use this rotatorus muscle if we get deep where the spinal erectors can't do it. It has to be small muscles. When you go very deep, the big muscles don't work as well. It's the small ones that get called upon. And then extension out of a Jefferson curl or elephant walk, getting to Jefferson curl. That's going to give you spinal extension. We get some of this, it assists with rotation. We don't train rotation, but we train anti-rotation with the single leg back extension. It's what keeps you from semi-tipping and keeping your shoulders square when you have one leg, though, and you're offset, is the rotation in the spine, which is some of these muscles. So maybe I'm not explaining it the best way, but basically, if you're trying to reverse engineer, when will I be pain-free? You have to look to how deep does my problem run? If you really want to look at your MRI and look at the diagnoses and get very familiar with the anatomy and how deep in the back that is, because we see muscles, but then if you look up like, okay, I have a facet joint issue. You're just going to see a picture without muscles now. You're just going to see bones. And you're not really going to be able to conceptualize yet off these pictures. Wait, so how much deeper is this versus that? You just see bones. You don't realize there's muscles surrounding this entire thing. You would never see a spine like this. This doesn't exist. This spine doesn't exist. It's covered in muscles, small and large, all around, and ligaments. This is something we also don't really talk or look at either. The anterior longitudinal ligament runs all the way up the spine. So take whatever your problem is, DDD. Okay, I don't know what that is. Any of these issues, disc, bulge, herniation, degenerative, osteophytes, meaning end plate problems, modic changes in the bone, all this stuff, you have to get to the deepest muscles, which are, if you could see on a picture, the rotatorus would be here to here. The interspinalis would be connecting these. The multifidus would be in between every groove here. The rotatorus would be here to here, here to here. It's all the tension that you need proximity to the problem to heal the problem. So I'm going on a big rant. But it's not just like, okay, we got back muscles out here, and then we have this very delicate, tiny spine right in the middle with the nucleus of the disc and whatever. It's like, it's a very smooth progression of layers. Deep layer, middle layer, tiny, tiny layer that there's muscles right here, right on the nerve, right in between. And our body, we weren't given the ability to flex a nerve. I can't ask you, hey, can you tense your sciatic nerve? We don't know how to do that. Just like, let me first finish this point. You can't flex the nerve, but you can flex the muscle that's on the nerve and affect the nerve. Just like you can't affect your nervous system just by trying. I can't tell you, hey, change your nervous system. But I can tell you to change your breathing, and that'll affect the nervous system. You could hyperventilate, and your heart rate variability or whatever they measure for nervous system would show a difference. Or you could do a certain sigh or like deep box breathing or whatever to calm your nervous system measurably. So the same way we have certain like systems of the body that we can't directly automatically affect, we can work the other things within our control that will influence that. And it's the same thing here. We can't mindfully heal bone, disc, ligament, but we can move through ranges of motion that leave it no choice, and we can contract and activate the muscles we do have control over, which will influence those things. But it's deep. Like this is, if you can't even do a back extension rep, you can't even use the big muscles. Like you're so spine avoidant, you haven't even cracked down into getting the spinal erectors on board. which is okay. This is why it's a long game, but it's exponential. It's only going to get easier and easier. Like you can look like this and have a spine like this. Ronnie Coleman. You can get there just by avoiding the deep ranges and what we have to get to. So um the reason I wanted to give the rant is just seeing so many questions on the same stuff of like fixing this issue, that issue, whatever your diagnosis is, just look it up. Look how deep is it, what's around it, what muscles around it, what movements are the most dangerous for it, and then you know that's exactly the route that's going to heal you if you get to it safely, slowly over time. It has to, for anything to heal a big problem, it has to have the potential to seriously F you up. Like it should be very, very dangerous if you were to do it day one and do it wrong. That means it's potent enough, which is potential to heal or potential to harm. It has to be very potent. Um, and so yeah, that's why some people join the program and it's their first back strain of their life. They just kind of hurt their back and it's somewhat achy. They do back extensions for like a month and they're like, oh, I'm fixed. And it's because their problem was just a muscle. Like they didn't have structural spine issues yet. So they get results in a month, which is why some of you guys are on month 9 or month 8 and you're getting progress in the movements, but you know your spine hasn't changed too much yet. But it's like we have to get better at the movements that then let us train our back. So we have to get better at things that allow us to train harder, which then work on the spine. That's the only way back. Otherwise, would be called what other professionals would call a hopeless case, which is not true. But it's just like if you want 12 weeks to get there, it's not going to work. You know, we got to step by step. So the layers of spinal muscle, I think, empowering to understand how they affect the spine. You don't need to know every one or like all the little anatomy stuff. The multifidus, I think, is very helpful to know about. And rotatorus, there's different types, but rotatorus are very interesting to know about. Interspinalis, those are the ones I talk about. But yeah, that's end of my rant on that. It's the same way if you're trying to fix knees, you got to work through the quads and you got to work through a short range to get to a deeper range. And like, you got to get to some freaky knee ability, like deep couch stretch, reverse Nordic, or like sissy squats deep to really pull on the stuff in the knee, not outside of the muscles. So spine is just way deeper.
No, I think that's like super interesting just because you showed that photo of just like the spine and I don't know what did you call them, the facet joints?
Uh-huh.
And you said that there's like little muscles between every single one of those. Like if I
Right.
go into any spine specialist that I've been to over the years, they have like
They just have a
a
spine, but no
3D
muscles
model
behind.
of the spine. And they'll
Yeah.
tell you that there's all these little bones and there's all these nerves, but I've never heard a thing like, oh, and there's also all of these muscles. So it's
Right.
interesting that like I don't know,
Well,
they
they
don't
show
speak
you
about.
because they don't view it that way. That's the thing about culture. It warps our perspective of reality. The way we talk about things, literally, like if we only talk about the spine as something to protect and it's just bones and nerves, the reason why he shows I know what you're talking about exactly. Same thing with the knee and an orthopedic. They'll have a knee and an ACL flap and the tendon. They show this so that way when you're in there, they can say this is what broke. They only show you what has the potential to go wrong, but they don't show you like the muscle doesn't matter because no one's in here because of a strained quad. They're in here because of a torn ACL or meniscus. So I got to show you that little flap and we're going to fix it right here. But exactly, it's then because you only see that, you forget, wait, there's this super alive vascular healing tissue right here. This is it. This is a great picture. So here's the picture that you see all the problems and the joint. Okay, here's what we think our spine is and all this stuff, what's going wrong at the joint, the nerves and disc. But then here's what's also there too. So This is the multifidus. Look where it literally is in between diagonally, as deep as you can get in all this stuff. So,
That's very cool.
it's not like, yeah, it doesn't change the fact you could have a serious issue there. But like, imagine when you're coming up, you're 20 years old, you have a spine injury, or it doesn't even matter age. You can be 50 and not know this. You have these issues. The solution could only be to address this stuff. I did not know about this, because who would? I'm not. The spine specialists know about it, but they have never had a back injury and rehabbed and felt this stuff work. So it's like they just know this route where you just address this. So like, we literally live in a society that doesn't view the spine as something that's alive. We view it as like this very delicate thing that can only go wrong, not adaptable.